The judge froze. The entire courtroom went silent, and in that moment, everyone finally understood why I had walked in with my head held high, because the truth they'd been hiding for years was standing right in front of them. The judge froze the second he saw me walk into the courtroom. Not because I looked dangerous, not because I looked important, but because he recognized something he never expected to see. My face, my presence, my identity, the one they all thought would never be revealed. 1 second the place was buzzing with whispers, with predictions, with assumptions. The next second, it was quiet enough to hear a heartbeat. That's the thing about truth. It doesn't walk in loudly. It walks in silently and destroys every lie still standing. And in that moment, I realized why life had taken me the long way here, not to shock them, but to remind me who I had become while they weren't watching. You see, people love to judge a story before they know the character. They love to pretend they understand you, to label you, to limit you, to decide your fate based on the version of you they created in their own heads. They had spent years believing I was just another stranger, another nobody, another name on a file. They didn't know the nights I stood awake, building myself in the dark. They didn't know the battles I fought that left no scars on my skin, but carved lessons into my soul. They didn't know the things I chose to stay silent about because I wasn't chasing validation. I wasn't chasing applause. I was waiting. I was becoming. And the courtroom became the stage where all of that silence finally made sense. People underestimate the power of staying quiet. They think silence means weakness. They think hiding your truth means fear. But sometimes silence is strategy. Sometimes the armor you wear is invisibility. Sometimes disappearing is the only way to build the version of yourself that will reappear unstoppable. I learned that the world doesn't need to hear your progress. It needs to feel your arrival. And when I stepped forward, when the judge realized who I truly was, it wasn't pride that filled me. It was peace, because the truth didn't need a speech. It didn't need a defense. It didn't need permission. It just needed a moment, and that moment had finally come. But revelation is never about the people watching you. It's about the person you had to become when nobody was watching. It's about the weight you carried alone, the promises you made to yourself, the patience you held even when it felt like time was working against you. You don't reveal your identity to prove others wrong. You reveal it because you finally feel strong enough to stand in it. You finally feel ready to let the world see the version of you that hardship created. That's what they saw that day, not a surprise, not a twist, but the result of a life lived quietly, intentionally, relentlessly. And the truth is, the world will always treat you differently once they know who you are. Once they see the strength you hid, the intelligence you sharpened in silence, the resilience you built from the ground up. Some will fear you, some will respect you, some will regret ever doubting you, but none of that matters if you let applause blind you or criticism break you. Because identity is not about recognition, it's about alignment. It's about becoming someone you're proud to reveal, whether the world is ready or not. That day in court wasn't about the judge freezing. It wasn't about the gasps in the room. It wasn't about the shock on their faces. It was about the moment I understood the value of every silent year, every hidden struggle, every choice to stay focused instead of being loud. The moment the world finally sees you as powerful, but the journey that built you is where your real identity lives. People think they know you the moment they see you. They think a glance is enough to define your worth, your background, your intelligence, your purpose, your entire identity. They build their judgments like walls, brick by brick, out of nothing but assumptions. And most of the time, they never even realize they're doing it. They don't question the story they've created about you, because it's easier to believe in their own imagination than to face the possibility that they were wrong. That courtroom was filled with people who already thought they understood me before I even stepped inside. They had decided who I was long before I opened my mouth. To them, I was just another face, another file, another stranger with no history that mattered. But the moment the judge saw me, everything they believed began to crumble, because that is what truth does. It destroys false assumptions in one breath. What nobody ever admits is how addicted society is to surface level thinking. People judge you by the shoes you wear, the way you enter a room, the silence you keep, the lack of noise around your life. If you're quiet, they think you're weak. If you're patient, they think you're lost. If you walk alone, they think you have no value. They analyze your life through the lens of their own insecurities, not reality. And because of that, many people get trapped inside identities that were never theirs to begin with. They start believing the lies people create about them. They start shrinking to fit inside someone else's expectations. But there are moments where truth becomes too big to hide, moments where your real identity refuses to stay in the shadows any longer, moments where you step forward and the world finally sees who you always were, not who they painted you to be. That moment for me happened the second the judge froze. That hesitation, that shock in his eyes, that sudden silence in the room, it all revealed how deep their assumptions had been and how wrong they were. The dangerous part about assumptions is that they make people comfortable. It's easy to put strangers into categories. It's easy to believe that someone who looks ordinary has lived an ordinary life. It's easy to assume that nothing powerful, nothing meaningful, nothing extraordinary is hidden behind a simple face. But life doesn't work like that. Identity is not written on the skin. Strength is not tattooed on the forehead. Purpose is not stitched onto a jacket. Real identity lives deeper in decisions, in scars, in sacrifices, in the battles you fought when nobody was cheering for you. The people in that courtroom had no idea about the years I spent growing in silence, learning in silence, surviving in silence. They saw the surface, not the story, but the moment of revelation forced them to face the truth. They had judged a book without even knowing the language it was written in. The truth about being judged unfairly is that it forces you to build a strength you never planned to have. You either break under the weight of other people's opinions, or you rise above them so powerfully that their words can't touch you anymore. I learned to rise. I learned to let people underestimate me because their underestimation became my advantage. When they think you're nothing, you move differently. You grow quietly. You sharpen your mind without interruption. You build a version of yourself that they could never predict. And one day, when they finally realize who you are, it's already too late for them to adjust their expectations. That is why the judge froze. Because everything he thought he understood no longer matched the person standing in front of him. People always say, don't judge a book by its cover, but they don't live by it, they don't practice it. They judge anyway, they judge quickly, they judge blindly, and they judge without apology. But once the truth appears, judgment has no power. The lies lose oxygen, the assumptions collapse, the room gets quiet because truth forces everyone to confront their own blindness. That is what happened that day. The truth didn't scream, it didn't fight, it didn't argue, it simply arrived. And its presence alone was enough to rewrite every story that had been told about me. That moment taught me one thing. When you know who you are, you don't need to explain yourself. You don't need to convince anyone. You don't need to beg for understanding. You don't need validation. Identity is not proven through words. It is proven through presence. But here's the part most people never understand. True identity doesn't shine in the moments when everyone is watching. It shines in the moments when nobody is. It shines in the discipline built in the dark, in the resilience born from silence, in the character formed from being doubted again and again. People assumed I was invisible, but invisibility was my strength. They assumed I had no story, but my silence was filled with chapters they could never imagine. They assumed I was ordinary, but what they called ordinary was simply unadvertised potential. The truth is, people only believe what they can see, and that's why your evolution has to happen quietly. Let them underestimate you, let them form their little stories, let them judge you from a distance. Because the day your real identity steps into the light, their version of you will disappear like smoke. Most people are terrified of revealing who they really are because they fear being misunderstood. But the world already misunderstands you. They already judge you. They already build false pictures of you. So what's left to fear? The only thing that matters is who you know yourself to be. And when that identity becomes unshakable, when it becomes stronger than their assumptions, that is when your presence becomes louder than any explanation you could ever give. That is why the judge froze, not because I asked him to, not because I demanded recognition, but because truth, when fully revealed, forces even the high, strangling person in the room to confront their own mistaken beliefs. And in that moment, every whisper, every judgment, every assumption disappeared. Because the real identity they never saw was now standing exactly where it was always meant to be. There is a certain power in living quietly, a power most people never understand because they are too addicted to attention. They think loudness equals strength. They think visibility equals progress. They think noise equals purpose. But the truth is, some of the strongest people you'll ever meet are the ones who build their entire lives in silence. They don't brag about their plans. They don't announce their intentions. They don't seek approval or validation. They move through life like shadows, unseen, unnoticed, underestimated, but always advancing. And the world only realizes who they truly are when it's too late to stop them. That is the beauty of working in the dark. That is the power of letting your truth speak only when it is fully ready. When I walked into that courtroom, people didn't understand what they were looking at because I had never given them clues. I didn't broadcast my struggles. I didn't perform my progress. I didn't need anyone to watch me grow. Growth is not a performance. Transformation is not a show. It's a private war between who you were and who you are becoming. And I fought that war every single day in silence. The silence wasn't weakness. It was protection. It was clarity. It was focus. While others wasted their time trying to look successful, I was becoming successful. While they sought recognition, I sought evolution. While they tried to impress the world, I tried to impress the future version of myself. That version was the one who eventually walked into that courtroom. People misunderstand silence because they fear it. They fear being alone with their thoughts. They fear facing the truth about themselves. They fear discovering that they are not who they pretend to be in public. So they run from silence. They fill every moment with distraction, noise, opinions, drama, excuses. They want to be seen even if they have nothing to show. But silence strips you of illusions. It forces you to confront yourself. It forces you to build something real. That is why working in silence is uncomfortable for most people. It exposes their lack of discipline. It exposes their laziness. It exposes their need for validation. But for those who embrace silence, it becomes the place where their real identity is forged. I learned early that the world listens more closely when you speak less, when you move differently, when you make progress without broadcasting your every step. People can't attack what they can't see. They can't sabotage what they don't know exists. They can't destroy plans they were never aware of. Silence is a shield. It guards your ambitions. It guards your growth. It guards your identity until you're ready to reveal it. And when that revelation finally comes, it carries a power that noise could never achieve. Because the truth you reveal in silence is 10 times more impactful than anything you could have spoken before. There is also a calmness that develops when you stop explaining yourself, when you stop defending your choices, when you stop feeling the need to justify your progress to anyone. You learn to move with intention instead of insecurity. You learn to trust the process rather than rush toward applause. You learn to build a foundation so strong that the opinions of others can't shake it. That foundation becomes your strength. And when people finally see the results of your silent work, they don't see the struggle behind it. They only see the power. They see the outcome, not the journey. They see the identity, not the sacrifice. And sometimes that's exactly how it should be. Most people want their growth to be witnessed. They want people to clap for them at every step, but applause becomes a trap. You start performing for approval instead of pushing for progress. You start shaping your life around what others expect instead of what you truly want. Silent work frees you from that trap. It separates your evolution from their opinions. It allows you to rebuild yourself without interference, without noise, without judgment. And the moment you appear after that silent season, you are unrecognizable not because you changed suddenly, but because you changed consistently when nobody was watching. That is why the truth speaks the loudest after a period of silence, because the world is not prepared for what patience creates. They are not prepared for the person who didn't chase attention. They are not prepared for the one who stayed low, stayed focused, stayed disciplined. That kind of person becomes a force, a storm, a revelation, and when your real identity finally steps into the light, it doesn't need introduction. It doesn't need explanation. It simply stands there and the world understands. That is what happened when the judge saw me. The power wasn't in who I was. The power was in who I had become without anyone noticing. Working in shadows teaches you something else too. It teaches you how to win quietly, how to take losses quietly, how to rebuild quietly, how to rise quietly. You develop emotional discipline. You learn how to manage pressure. You learn how to control your reactions instead of being controlled by them. Silence becomes more than a strategy. It becomes a lifestyle that protects your peace. It becomes a training ground for resilience. And the more you grow in silence, the harder you become to shake. People often ask why the truth hits so hard when it finally comes out. It hits hard because people are forced to confront the fact that you were never who they thought you were. It hits hard because they realize their assumptions weren't just wrong, they were meaningless. It hits hard because they suddenly see the strength you built while they weren't paying attention. And that realization doesn't just surprise them, it humbles them. It silences them the way they once tried to silence you. Living in silence is not about hiding. It's about preparing. It's not about fear. It's about focus. It's not about secrecy. It's about strategy. People don't need to understand your journey while you're walking it. They don't need to know your identity while you're shaping it. They don't need to see your progress while you're earning it. But when the time comes for the truth to appear, let it appear fully. Let it appear unapologetically. Let it appear in a way that speaks louder than every doubt, every judgment, every assumption they ever placed on your name. And when that moment arrives, they won't remember your silence. They'll remember the strength that stepped out of it. There is a moment in every journey where patience stops feeling like a choice and starts feeling like a punishment. When you wait so long for the truth to come out, when you hold everything inside because you know the world isn't ready for it, it can make you wonder whether the revelation is even worth it. You question yourself, your decisions, your silence, your sacrifices. You ask why you're enduring so much when others walk through life effortlessly with their loud opinions and empty confidence. But the thing about patience is that it's not meant to make you comfortable. It's meant to make you strong. It's meant to shape the version of you who can handle the moment you've been waiting for. And that moment only becomes powerful when it arrives at the right time. When the judge froze at the sight of me, it wasn't just shock. It was the proof that all the time I spent waiting had finally aligned with purpose. I realized something in that instant. The moment of revelation is not about proving the world wrong. It's about proving yourself right, because during the long, quiet years, the world didn't believe in me. They didn't know me. They didn't see the work I was putting in, or the battles I was fighting privately. But I saw it, I felt every day of it, I carried the weight of it alone, and the only thing that kept me going was the belief that one day the truth would meet the right moment. That belief is what kept me patient when everything inside me wanted to break. People don't understand how hard it is to wait while others judge you. They think patience is easy because they only see it from the outside. They don't know what it feels like to hold back who you truly are because you know the world won't appreciate it yet. They don't understand what it takes to stay silent when every part of you wants to defend yourself. They don't understand the discipline required to trust timing instead of forcing outcomes. They don't know the nights where you feel invisible, the days where you feel misunderstood, the moments where you feel forgotten. Yet somehow, you keep moving, you keep building, you keep believing, and that belief becomes the anchor that keeps your spirit from collapsing. The world is obsessed with instant results. They want quick victories, fast recognition, immediate validation. They chase applause like it's oxygen. They don't understand the kind of strength it takes to stand back, to wait, to grow slowly, to mature in the dark, to trust that the truth will bloom when it's ready. Patience feels like punishment to them because they've never learned how to sit with themselves long enough to grow. But patience is the filter that separates those who want attention from those who want transformation. The ones who rush will break, the ones who wait will rise. What most people don't see is that patience builds a different kind of power. It makes your mind sharp. It makes your heart steady. It prepares you for pressure you never knew you would face. If my truth had been exposed too early, I wouldn't have been ready for the weight that came with it. I would have reacted emotionally, not wisely. I would have fought battles I didn't need to fight. I would have spoken out of insecurity instead of confidence. But patience gave me clarity. It gave me understanding. It gave me maturity. By the time the world saw who I truly was, I no longer needed their approval. Their reactions didn't shape me. I walked in already shaped. There is something powerful about watching people realize the truth long after you have accepted it yourself. In that courtroom, the shock on their faces didn't inflate my ego. It grounded me. It reminded me why the waiting was necessary. I wasn't waiting for them. I was waiting for me. I was waiting to grow into the identity I was meant to carry. I was waiting to become someone strong enough to stand in that moment without shaking. And when it finally happened, I didn't need to explain myself. The revelation spoke for me. The truth carried itself. The silence I endured became the strength that held me steady. The moment of revelation isn't about revenge. It's not about rubbing your success or your identity in the faces of those who doubted you. It's not about proving that they were wrong. It's about realizing that you were right to keep going even when you felt alone. It's about realizing that the version of you who kept believing through the pain was wiser than you ever gave them credit for. Because patience isn't something you practice. It's something you grow into, slowly, quietly, painfully. And when the world finally sees you, they see the strength patience built, not the struggles patience required. Sometimes you don't get what you want right away because you're not meant to be seen yet. You're meant to grow in private, to develop quietly, to become someone deeper than the world is capable of understanding at that moment. If the world sees you too early, they misjudge you, they misunderstand you, they mislabel you. And those labels can trap you if you're not strong enough yet to rise above them. That's why patience is protection. It shields you until you're ready to stand without being shaken. People always want to rush their breakthrough, but they forget that the moment you reveal yourself becomes the moment the world starts expecting things from you. They start watching, they start analyzing, they start questioning. If you're not ready for that pressure, it will crush you. But if you've grown patiently, silently, steadily, then the pressure won't break you. It will reveal your strength. And that strength becomes undeniable. That is why the moment of revelation feels so powerful, not because others finally see you, but because you finally see yourself clearly. You see the transformation you achieved through patience. You see the resilience you built while waiting. You see the wisdom that was born from your silence. And you realize that the wait was never wasted. It was building you, it was preparing you, it was shaping you into someone capable of carrying the truth without fear. So when the judge froze, when the room fell silent, when the truth finally stepped into the light, it wasn't the world's reaction that mattered, it was the realization that the patience I once mistook for punishment had actually been the greatest gift life ever gave me. The moment people finally see who you truly are, everything changes, not just in the way they look at you, but in the way they treat you, speak to you, approach you, and even judge you. It's strange how one revelation can rearrange an entire room. The same people who once overlooked you now can't take their eyes off you. The same ones who spoke carelessly suddenly measure every word. The same ones who dismissed you begin to reconsider every assumption they ever made. That's the power of truth when it finally walks into the open. It forces people to confront how wrong they were, how blind they had been, and how little they truly understood. But this shift is not something you celebrate. It's something you learn to navigate carefully, because the world's reaction to your identity says more about them than it ever will about you. When I stepped into that courtroom and the judge froze, I could feel the energy change instantly. The room that once carried the casual arrogance of people, convinced they knew everything, suddenly transformed into a space filled with caution, uncertainty, and a quiet kind of respect they never would have offered moments earlier. It was a reminder that people don't respect you because you're worthy, they respect you because they finally understand your worth. And that realization is both empowering and disappointing at the same time. Empowering because the truth gave you back the power they took. Disappointing because you realize how much of their behavior was built on inaccurate assumptions. When people discover your real identity, they often switch their tone. Their posture changes, their words become softer or more careful. Their eyes start searching for a version of you they completely missed before. It's almost ironic. They expect you to be the same person they judged, but they also want to pretend they always knew who you were. Their sudden respect isn't genuine growth. It's shock dressed as humility. It's fear disguised as admiration. It's an attempt to correct a mistake they never should have made. And the truth is, their reactions are temporary. What truly matters is how you carry yourself through this shift. You have to stay grounded. Because the moment people realize who you are, they will either place you on a pedestal or turn you into a threat. Some will admire you because your truth inspires them. Others will envy you because your truth intimidates them. Some will apologize without words. Others will pretend they never doubted you. And a few will quietly resent the fact that you became someone they never expected. Their reactions can make you feel powerful, but power is a dangerous feeling if you let it define you. The world may now see your identity, but you have to remember the version of yourself that existed long before they acknowledged it. The attention you receive after revealing your truth is often louder than the silence you endured before it. People will suddenly want to be close to you, to understand you, to learn from you, to claim they supported you all along. They want to be connected to your identity now that it holds weight. But you cannot let their sudden interest distort your sense of self. Because the truth is, you were valuable even when they didn't see it. You were powerful even when they ignored it. You were becoming someone important even when they didn't care. Their recognition doesn't elevate you. It simply catches up to who you already were. Some people will treat you differently because your identity challenges the version of themselves they cling to. When they see your strength, they suddenly feel their own weakness. When they witness your resilience, they confront their own fragility. When they realize how wrong they were about you, they must face how often they judge others without understanding their story. You become a mirror they don't want to look into, because your presence exposes truths they'd rather keep buried. Their discomfort is not your responsibility. Their reaction is not your burden. You cannot shrink yourself to make them feel bigger. When the world finally sees who you really are, temptations also come. Temptations to prove yourself, to defend your identity, to show your strength, to speak louder, to shine brighter, to force people to acknowledge what they once ignored. But strength doesn't need to announce itself. Identity doesn't need to be proven repeatedly. Once the truth is revealed, let it stand on its own. Let it breathe. Let it speak in your presence, in your decisions, in your discipline, in the way you carry yourself. The moment you start performing for recognition, you lose the quiet dignity you built in the shadows. There is another side to this shift as well. People will begin to expect more from you. They will hold you to a higher standard because now they believe you are capable of more. They may start depending on your strength, assuming your confidence, or seeking your wisdom. And while these expectations may feel flattering, they can also become heavy if you forget that you are human, evolving, still learning, still growing. You have to stay honest with yourself, stay connected to the version of you who walked alone, who carried doubts, who grew through silence. You have to protect that part of yourself because it is the root of your identity, the part that remained steady before anyone else believed in you. And then there are the people who will treat you differently because they fear you now, fear the power you carry, fear the truth you represent, fear the influence they didn't expect you to have, fear the strength that grew quietly inside you. These people may distance themselves, speak less, observe more. They may try to rebuild the walls they once placed around you, this time not out of judgment, but out of intimidation. But you cannot allow their fear to dictate your confidence. Their fear is the result of their own limitations, not your existence. What matters most is that when your identity is finally revealed, you remain the person you built in silence, focused, steady, grounded, unshaken. You've already lived through the years where nobody saw your worth. You've already survived the doubts, the assumptions, the misunderstandings. So when people finally adjust their behavior, don't let it define you. Let it remind you of how far you've come. Because the world reacts based on what they see, but you must act based on who you are.